which Frank normally... Oh.
Yes, go ahead.
Welcome, everybody. I'll begin by reading, which Frank normally does, the statement from the Futuhat. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. We empty our hearts of reflective thinking, and we sit together with the real in remembrance. On the carpet of spiritual courtesy, adab, attentiveness, muraqaba, and presence, hudur, and readiness to receive whatever comes to us from him, so that it is the real al-Haq who takes charge of our instruction by way of unveiling and realization. So when their hearts and powers of concentration have turned to God and taken refuge in him alone, and have cast out of them whatever else is clinging to them of pretension, investigation, rational observation, and intellectual conclusions, then their minds are secure and at peace, and their hearts are purified and empty. When this state of preparedness is in them, the real al-Haq reveals himself to them as the teacher. And this witnessing informs them of the meanings of these reports and words in a single outpouring. Mugees, do you pronounce your name with a hard G or a soft G?
It's Mugees.
Mugees. Okay.
Yeah.
Mugees, when you're ready to start, then we are all ready to listen to what you have to say.
Okay. Am I allowed to share my screen? I think I had a PPT.
Yes. Yes, you can.
Let me see whether I will be able to share this. Yeah, screen. So is it visible?
Something's visible, but what is your first page? This page has a whole lot of Google stuff. Ah, here we are.
So,
yes. Yes.
So is it visible now?
It is visible now.
Okay. So shall I start?
Yes, Mugees, that would be good. Thank you.
Okay. So Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So I have been assigned to speak about Fusus Yaqub, the chapter on Jacob in Fusus. So, well, what I could understand from the chapter is that in this chapter, Ibn Arabi is basically talking about religion, deen. What does he mean by deen, or what does he mean by religion, or how does he explain it? So this is basically an ayah in the Quran from Baqarah, chapter 2 and ayah 132, verse 132, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about that Ibrahim assigned this deen to his children, and same did Yaqub. So he assigned deen to his children. So what is this deen? And that's what Ibn Arabi is going to discuss about in this chapter. So basically, Ibn Arabi in this verse says that there are basically two types of religion. One is the religion which is grounded on dialectic plane. That is, for Ibn Arabi, in fact, all major mystical philosophers in a way, uh, the Godhead or Absolute, which is the source of everything, source of all manifestations, when there is the first universal manifestation, so to speak, of divinity, when divinity is manifested, that's the polarity. And when there is creator and created, that is the plane of ethical religion for Ibn Arabi, where there is normativity or where there is prescriptive, so to speak, element. So this is the first type of religion, the sort of usual understanding of religion. But then Ibn Arabi talks about the ontological, or what we might say metaphysical religion, and that is that beyond all dualities, beyond the whole dialectic, every act in its essence, or every event in its essence is, so to speak, sanctioned by absolute. Because every possibility is a possibility in the infinite. But this is the second type of religion. This is the second type of, so to speak, prescriptiveness or sanction, we might say. Um, so now there is an illustration that I would like to share, which would, in a way, shed some light on what I'm trying to say. Is if we, for example, uh, talk about very briefly about the question of purpose of uh, human being, or purpose of life. What is the purpose of life? What is the purpose of human being? This question, if we try to talk about it in very brief, will, so to speak, explain a little what is this distinction that we're talking about, the ethical religion, the ontological religion. So when we talk about purpose of human being or purpose of life, again, if we speak about it on these two planes, that's the absolute plane and then the dialectic plane. What do we mean by that is that on the absolute plane, we cannot superimpose any anthropocentric purposes on God as if absolute had to do this or he had to do that. And no anthropocentric uh, purpose or end can be superimposed on absolute. Absolute manifests because he manifests, or because he is absolute. Absolute by definition is infinite, the abode of infinite possibilities, which manifests, and within that infinite, uh, uh, that within those infinite possibilities or modalities, we might say, or ayana sabita, archetypes, there is one possibility of manifesting. So absolute manifests because he's absolute. There's no anthropocentric purpose we might superimpose that that's why he did this, or that's why he did that. But the point is, when manifestation happens, when manifestation takes place, and when dialectic plane comes into being, as in when this polarity comes into being, when world comes into being, when light and day, dark and night, this Chinese wisdom calls it yin and yang, good and evil. So when this polarity or dialectic or dualism, so to speak, comes into being, then human beings are uh, invited for a test. So when Quran says that God created human beings to test them, this is speaking on the dialectic plane. It has nothing to do with, so to speak, the absolute plane. So when dialectic comes into being, then human beings are, so to speak, asked to, they should take side of the gentle names of God, the Jamali names of God, and try to save themselves, or not invite the action of the Jalali names of God. So here, for example, I have taken this from Campbell's text, Heraclitus, who's a pre-Socratic mystic. In fact, all major these pre-Socratic philosophers are actually mystical thinkers, which whose works have been wrongly, so to speak, demythologized by later post-Aristotelian Western philosophers and commentators. So he's, for example, saying, for God, all things are good, right, and just, but for man, some things are right, others are not. So it's when we are on the dialectic plane, there is the polarity, there is the distinctions, and we would call some things good, some things bad, but ontologically this whole binary does not hold. I mean, I'm talking about on the absolute plane. It's everything is sanctioned because everything is a possibility. It has to manifest. So, for example, if you talk about this example I put here, I think even Ghazali has talked about a scorpion. I'm not sure, but I just take this example of poisonous snake. Now, poisonous snake, I have to avoid poisonous snake on the dialectic plane when I'm in the world, when I'm living, and it is bad for me. So there is this notion when I'm in the dialectic plane, but ontologically, because the reason it has been granted wujud is because it's sanctioned. It is a possibility of infinite, so it will manifest. So on that plane, everything is good. With that capital good, not the good of polarity. It's good because it's a possibility. So this is what he means by the ethical religion and the ontological religion. The religion which is prescribed by the God, personal God or divine, so to speak, when polarity exists, so that we should side with the good and escape bad. That's ethical religion. But ontological religion is, like, in a way we would say that even Satan is an employee of God. So everything from on an ontological plane is sanctioned. I think Ibn Arabi in this chapter, this Fasl Yaqub, towards the end, mentions uh, about a prophetic tradition, a hadith, where he said, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that, uh, am I audible? Is this voice coming across properly?
Well, it is
Hear
clear,
you.
Mugees, yes.
Yes, it is.
So,
Thank you.
so he talks about the one hadith that this Surat Hud has given me great pain, so to speak, because uh, the people are being constantly asked, these prescriptive statements, do this or don't do this. Now, of course, this is correct, and this has its value on an ethical plane. But now, Prophet is saying, until and unless the thing comes to fruition, I do not know what the ontic will would be. What would be the choice? Sort of, what would be the possibility that comes into being? So, I mean, the prophets and great saints, they are able to see between this binary. So let's just leave that there. And now, yes, now this is an example that Ibn Arabi used to explain what he's trying to say. That is the example of Christian monasticism, where he quotes an ayah from Hadith, chapter 57, verse 26, where he talks about Jesus and Mary, and then he says that later on Christians invented. That's a word that the verse uses, that they invented monasticism, which was not prescribed. So this is an ayah that Ibn Arabi uses to explain what he is actually trying to say. That there is one religion, for example, for Ibn Arabi, it is not sanctioned in Rasulullah's prescription. It's not sanctioned by the religion of Prophet Muhammad. But he says that the deeper hikmah that comes from God, that, so to speak, based on the very inner state of being of saint, demands it from the saint. So that act, considering hikmah, is sanctioned by God, but not prescribed on the dialectic plane, or in other words, is not prescribed on the religious or ethical plane. That's why in the same ayah, basically, he criticizes later people. I think towards the end I have mentioned, the reason that ayah criticizes later Christians is because that the practice is, so to speak, falsely imitated, because that practice in itself is a manifestation of a level of a saint, uh, which, if I simply copy the practice, is problematic, because it's not sanctioned, so to speak, or prescribed by the ethical religion, and neither am I on that state, or neither is it the manifestation of that being of mine, which has its sanction on the ontological plane. So this is what he says, that outer religion is known to all. This is the religion that's prescribed, and the inner religion is private, which depend. And this is actually how Ibn Arabi actually uh, differentiates between, not differentiate, but explains the station of sainthood and prophethood. Now, prophethood, because prophet has to interact, so to speak, or he is a buffer between God and people. So there is that polarity and there is that dialectic. But saint is purely, he is so to speak on the absolute plane, or his concern is the absolute plane. So I have written here, as follower of prophet, saint is on the relative plane. So this is the ethical religion. This is the form, so to speak. But as saint, pure saint, he is on transcendent plane, and that there he is talking about pure substance. And this is actually this whole, I mean, I think, as we know, as you all know, that this theme that Ibn Arabi, like Advaita would say, the distinction or the discernment between Atma and Maya, this is actually the main theme that Ibn Arabi is trying to invoke again and again. And this is what he's basing this distinction between ethical and ontological religion. So this theme again and again through different uh, 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 dimensions recurs in Fusus. Yes, now this is one example, beautiful example that Ibn Arabi gives, very plain, simple example that explains this thing. Now, he gives the example of a physician. Now, when a patient is ill, the point is that I, as a physician, my job is to cure a patient. So uh, that is the divine wish, or that is the ethical prescriptive uh, want, so to speak, that God asks prophet, or God asks believers to practice certain things when we are on the dialectic plane, on earthly plane. But the fact that someone is diseased or gets a disease, because both disease and health are possibilities. So when we talk about nature or ontology or totality, they are sanctioned. So both health as well as disease are, so to speak, they are equal because they are sanctioned by nature. But because I am a physician and my job here on earth is to cure, so I will go for the cure. This is how he explains this thing. Now, he then, when he moves on in the chapter, he goes into the depth of it and he explains what he means by ethical religion. What is actually ethical religion in its essence? Ibn Arabi basically, in fact, all great major mystical philosophers say the same thing, that ethics basically is nothing but our own life form. That is, whatever my own inclination is, that becomes my deen. By deen, he means what God gives us back, so to speak. As in, if I want goodness, if I want happiness, or if I want contentment, and that's what I work towards, what I am basically doing is, I, as a possibility, is asking wujud from what we call jud wal karam, that that metaphysical translation of the meaning of Ar-Rahman, who is all giving, who gives wujud, whatever seeks wujud from it. So if I want restlessness, that's what I would get, depending upon my own inclination, that I unnecessarily posit ego and all of that, which would create restlessness. So it is not good and evil. So that's why Quran again and again repeats this, that good and evil is not invented by God, so to speak, directly in a way, but it's like God gives you wujud. It's me, it's my own. Quran uses this word bima kasabat aydin nas and other places, that uh, it is your own doing, it is the earning of your hands. So it's me, as a possibility, is demanding wujud, is demanding hal, state from God. Whatever I want, he gives. So that is why Ibn Arabi says deen basically is custom. So whatever is my own life form, whatever is that's why this is, I think, this Maruf sir has written some articles on the notion of hell according to Ibn Arabi, hell and heaven, and in that there is a statement that Ibn Arabi basically says that we are not punished for sins, we are punished by sins. So that's my own state defines my own ethics. So when I, for example, cheat, or when I try to deceive reality or deceive people, when I am jealous, my own state burns me, so to speak. That the Quran uses the word that it, they will burn in the fire that erupts from their fu'ad, from their hearts. So it's not as if some external policeman, so to speak, comes and beats me up. It's my own state that demands wujud. Whatever I want, that's what God gives. And that's why I think in one of the commentaries I found this, that Yaqub, the name, its root meaning is traced to this notion that the one who gets his desert, that gets his due properly. That's the ethic. That is the ethical plane uh, that Ibn Arabi talks about. Now, uh, here, when we understand the ethical, that whatever my life form is, whatever my own, so to speak, inclination is, that defines the kind of state I will be in. This is the ethical. But ontologically, how Ibn Arabi, metaphysically, how Ibn Arabi explains it, we have tried to juxtapose it with the theory of Advaita called Pratibimba-vada. Pratibimba-vada is like, it explains that essentially Atman is one, absolute is one. So they try to explain multiplicity through this theory, Pratibimba-vada, and they say that Atman is one, absolute is one. But then Atman reflects uh, uh, based upon the individual natures of soul, so to speak. So that's what he's trying to say on ethical plane. Because the texture of individual souls differs. The avidya, level of avidya in different souls differs. So when Atman reflects on different mirrors, and this parable of mirrors and reflection, this is quite profusely used by Ibn Arabi in Futuwa, that Chittick quotes him. So one Atman reflects on multiple different mirrors, because different mirrors have different textures, and that's how multiplicity comes into being. So this is reciprocal reflection, I would use the word. That is, that absolute, by virtue of infinite, reflects his names through ayah, through different possibilities. And different possibilities seek out wujud from absolute. That is the reciprocal, so to speak, reflection. So if we come back to what we were saying, that the main theme of this chapter is that Ibn Arabi wants to explain the two levels of religion, so to speak, the ethical and the ontological. Here, this might get a little more clear. That is, uh, again, I mean, on the ethical or dialectical or dualist, this creative plane, I would say that we would say that this thing is good and this thing is bad, but the on ontological level, we would say that every act, so to speak, seeks wujud from God. So as we know that there are different divine names. So both Jalali names as well as Jamali names, both stern, so to speak, that transcendent names, as well as the names which are more immanent or more closer, they would seek uh, their manifestation. So on ontological plane, we don't, so to speak, uh, posit this categorical, dualist, binary, good and evil terminology. Because on ontological plane, every possibility seeks wujud. And that is what is, I mean, for example, this is actually this whole discussion that we are doing This is actually the mystical theodicy of all great mystical philosophers. Because, I mean, when we look at individual human lives, the angst, the suffering, the deep pain, this is not denied. This is there. But the point is that metaphysics or irfan does not have to be or is not consoling. It's not, it's pure truth. It has nothing to do with sentimentality from that point of view. That's the job of religion or the ethical, because it's catered to human beings. Human being is a personality or is a sentimentality, is reason or sentiment or will, and also intelligence. But metaphysics purely addresses intelligence. Because metaphysics is truth. Truth is what is. It doesn't care whether I would like it or not. So metaphysical truth is that whatever exists, the reason, in fact, that there is existence, because absolute manifests. Now, absolute is infinite, so every possibility will manifest. Even my own this angst or suffering or deep pain that individuals have, it has to manifest. But the problem is, for example, human beings forget that we also laugh a lot. We get excited. We feel wonder and awe. Every possibility has to manifest. Every archetypal modality, so to speak, seeks wujud and absolute grants it. So this is actually, uh, in brief, what Ibn Arabi is trying to say in this chapter. I think that would be it. Uh, I don't know how to close
Thank
this.
you very much, Mugees.
That's excellent. So I have just one or two questions. One, just to seeking clarification, ethical versus ontological. So all names has an ontological presence, right? They give the existence.
Yes, yes, yes.
So for example, evil, shaitan, or all the negative is part of God's Jalal names, right?
No, we wouldn't put it in that formulation because it's a little problematic. What we would say, sir, is that, am I allowed to answer?
Yes,
Yeah,
please,
yeah, yeah,
Mugees.
yeah. The question is to
Mugees,
yourself.
do you mind putting your picture on so we can see you?
Sure, sure,
Okay,
sure, sure, sure.
thank you.
So
Thank you.
basically, that's a very good question, very, in fact, crucial and critical question. But we won't put it in that formulation because that's a little problematic, because it actually grants sort of an ontological category to evil itself. What we would say that, uh, like, for example, it's ascribed to Jesus in the Bible that Jesus said, when he was said that you are good, then he said, no, only God is good. What he basically means, or what do these metaphysicians basically mean, is that absolute, which is infinite, which contains all possibilities, is the only equilibrium. That's the only equilibrium we have. But the moment manifestation takes place, the moment, which, for example, even Sean would say that, through the principle of Maya, when that distance takes place, when manifestations take place, we won't say evil, so to speak, comes into being. We would say disequilibrium comes into being. As in, when manifestation takes place, different things. I think there is a noise
Yeah,
coming. Yeah.
yeah. I was able to mute him. Yes.
Okay. So what I was saying that, when manifestation takes place, the moment dialectic comes into being, what happens is that different things or different modalities or different beings realize or manifest different names. For example, in dogs, certain modalities or certain uh, things got manifested. In a tree, different things got manifested. In a human being, different things. So what happens that on the dialectic plane, there is nothing which is able to manifest totality. So there is a disequilibrium. Just because of this, the reason that when manifestation takes place and nothing in the universe is able to capture all possibilities, that is what we would say evil. Because nothing is God, and only God is good. This is what Jesus is saying. God is
Your
good,
line
but
is getting distorted.
only God
Yeah.
manifestation. There's a divergence. Oh, uh, is it now? Is the audio coming properly?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Should I?
think. Yeah. Going
Yeah.
to
So
audio mode as opposed to video mode,
yes,
because
yes.
looks like that is impacting your voice quality.
So yeah, this is what I think that's what I said that basically uh, this equilibrium is a more proper word, because we would say that only absolute is good when he is absolute, or when there is totality of possibility. When the now I was just saying that when we come to the human plane, when there is anthropocentrism, when human beings interact with each other, that disequilibrium is labeled with the category of evil. So that we would say we won't give evil a sort of an ontological category. It's like I mean, this is how Muslim theodicy has dealt with it, or even Christian scholastic theology, is that we would say it's like a shadow. The moment something is manifested, the shadow was not the purpose, so to speak. The moment something came into being, shadow came into being. That's what we would say evil. We won't grant it sort of an ontological category independent.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. My understanding is there's a Khalq and Haq. In the Khalq, which is of course part of the illusion and shadow, which is this Zahir, a will existence in that, but it's not part of the Haq. It's not part of the Zat. So huwa ahadun bi dhatihi, wahidun bi sifatihi wa asma'ihi. He is one in his Zat, which is the absolute, but he is many, he is unique in his names and qualities. So Ad-Darra is part of his name. As a result, his name need to manifest. As a result, of course, all the things are there so that the Zamal can take place. That's, of course, Jalal has to take place as well. That's why my understanding is both those things has existence in this dunya, but not in the barzakh. Yeah, that's my understanding. So
Yes,
if in
yes,
terms of
that.
ontology,
Mhm,
ontology, which is the
mhm.
being, existence of being, that existence of being has, of course, two parts. One is the tashbih, the other part is tanzih. So this is part of
Yes,
tasbih, not part of tanzih.
yes,
That's
yes.
my
In
understanding.
fact,
Yeah. Mm.
yes,
Yeah.
you're correct. Absolutely right. Yeah, you're right. In fact, there is this essay that Schwann has written on the question on theodicies. This is, in fact, what he's basically saying, that you know, absolute, absolute in a way has nothing to do with any duality or any dualism, whatever. Yes, the very first universal manifestation is what we would call divinity, and it is the job of divinity who creates, and then there is test of human beings, and then there is good and evil. The Zat, as you said, the Tyo Tanzi or Zat or Godhead, as Christians would say, uh, is totally, so to speak, transcendent, as the word transcendent means. And evil, so to speak, does not reach there. Evil comes into being when there is dialectic. Evil would have absolutely no meaning if there is no dialectic. The fact that there would be dialectic, there would be, so to speak, creative plane or dialectic or relativity, as the mystical thinker would say. On the plane of relativity, there are, as you rightly said, the manifestation of both Jalali as well as Jamali names. And yes.
Anyone else has any other question?
I'm here. I'm sorry to say that I have made a mistake with the times. I changed my clocks, but not the one in my hand, and I used the one in my hand thinking I've changed it, so I missed it. Sorry about that. So because of this, I won't ask any questions because I don't know what has actually expired.
We are discussing, Frank, the religion, and there is a two part. One is ontological, another is ethical.
Yeah.
So the question is, this evil force, which part it belongs? So Mugees clarified based on the Ibn Arabi's writing that, of course, evil parts into the ethical part. It has no ontological presence, but I was differing on that understanding. I was saying that no, it has ontological presence, but of course tasbih, not tanzih. And I was trying to say that in this arsh, and there's a kursi where there's this duality, the qadam al-sidq and qadam al-jabarut. The confirming foot of truth, and the other is the compelling power, foot of all compelling power. So all this jalaliyat is part of that jabarut, qadam jabarut, the compelling power. So that's where, of course, all these evil things can come out to balance it or to create room for Ghaffar to take place. That's why sinners do the sin. So can we say that sinner is when doing the sin that has no ontological existence? In my mind, it has. Because he is acting because God is manifesting his jabarut, his jalaliyat through him. But of course, as Ibn Arabi suggested, for us human being, he already said this is his preference. So that's what this question of religious diversity, and of course we can be on the path depending on which way we are considering ourselves to go. And the zanne abd bi, if as abd, I assume that God is all the thing, whatever is maya, which whatever, as you mentioned, maya, which is basically illusion. I am falling to that illusion. At that moment, I am manifesting his Jabarut component. I am manifesting the other side, not the Jamal side, but the Jalal side. I am going in that direction because my heart is now in a gashwa, in a clouded. I can't see the truth. I can't see his light. As a result, I am at the moment at the capture of this eclipse, that shadow. So because the shadow has fallen on my heart, at the moment I am in the dark side, not on the bright side. This is my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we have to be careful. I think we're mixing here Jalal and Jamal with the inner and outer of religion. They are two different things and they're not the same. So
Yes,
my understanding, Jalal and Jamal are both in the inner and in the outer. It's not that one is good and one is bad. They are both manifestation of Allah. They're both in the names, and they're both manifestation of Allah. We from a position of duality, where humans may say this is good, this is bad, this is from our. I also don't like to use the word illusion and delusion because it is a relative. Manifestation is manifestation. It's manifestation of the unmanifest. So it's not necessarily illusion. It's real. It's real, but it's real in the manifest, not in the unmanifest. So it's otherwise we are taking sides. We're falling in duality. And if we're talking about oneness, then we have to be careful not to judge oneness from a position of duality. The good and bad is a dual thing that we humans actually see. So I think if we look at religion more from the position of the inner and the outer, So the inner religion is like the esoteric, you know, you are praying to God from the heart and the depth of your heart, and you have to be in a position where you're capable of doing that first to be ready. Whereas the outer religion is also valid. It's for people who just don't have the inner capacity to see God or to connect with God at the deeper level of the heart. So they pray in whichever way capacity they have, and that is acceptable for them. We can't say they're not as good, you know. So I think both in religion is both inner and outer, and both are valid, even though one is deeper than the other.
Noor, when you were speaking about the shadow, and you were speaking about the light, and you were speaking about being overwhelmed by the Jalal, or when you are out of the shadow, you are drawn towards the beautiful, the Jamal. Were you basing your remarks following Mugees' talk on the fact that everything is with reference to God? It's not as if when you are in the shadow and you come under God's Jalal name and you feel overwhelmed, you feel taqwa, you know, you feel a healthy reverence. Some people call it fear, that the reality is much bigger than you. Because you're in reference to the reality, then you're being held on to. This is the sense that I got from what you said, so that instead of being, and it follows on from what Mugees said, that evil or distance from reality is still, for the people of religion, it's still with reference to reality. So it's not divorced or completely separate or having a separate existence. It's in relation to one's own state at any given moment. So, you know, if you see a tornado approaching, you're probably going to be frightened, you know. But if you know that he is in control of everything, then you can come under the Jalal and you can request that he protect you or look after you or something. So I'm wondering if that's what you were talking about, an individual who has already at least got a reference point to the real. Is that how you were approaching it?
In other words, Noor, would you say what you called negative? Because there's nothing but Allah, there's nothing else there. So if we say this is bad, as if it's not part of Allah, then we're creating another God, aren't we?
Noor, I couldn't hear you because you're muted, Noor.
Oh, okay, yeah, what actually I was trying to say is, Rijaluddin, if you already know, aware that whatever is taking place at the moment in the part of the world, all this contention,
Mm-hmm.
and all this sabotage, those manifestation, which name of Allah's name are manifesting there, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
But the people who are doing that part, acting, here God's wish versus will, two part has been mentioned.
Yeah.
Right? So of course, La tashawna illa an yasha Allah. Nothing happens unless God's will joins with it. Right?
Yeah.
So God's will is there. Now you can say which names, is it Jalal name manifesting or Jamal name manifesting?
I'd say both.
I am saying that Jalal name is manifesting because God himself said he loves Jamal. He loves Jamal and he is Jamal. Yeah, go ahead, Mugees.
Yes, sir, if I may add something. I think one example that I had put in the presentation of poisonous snake.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, the point is that, for example, if I confront a snake whilst, for example, I'm going out for a walk. Now, that snake, that poisonous snake is bad for me on the dialectic plane, because it's going to be I'm going to be bit by it. But the point is that just the fact that snake exists, it's a modality of existence, it's a possibility of infinite, it has to infinite. Now,
Exactly, yes.
God on absolute plane is not going to call that poison snake bad, because the moment we leave duality, the moment we leave dialectic plane, this whole binary evaporates. It doesn't exist anymore. So this whole binary that we're talking about, even Jalal or Jamal, they are part of dialectic plane. Pure absolute is beyond this dialectic or beyond this binary. And now, just one example, when we talk about Jalali and all of that, the point is that on this dialectic plane, there are going to be some humans who invite the name of Muzil, so to speak, by the actions. Why that happens? That's a possibility that's going to manifest, has to manifest. That is the whole point of, so to speak, Ibn Arabi. But on the absolute plane, that whole are these categorizations that we put. That's why I was trying to invoke Jesus saying that only God is good. What it means is that on the absolute plane, when there is no, so to speak, relative, for example, Shankara, this Indian sage, talked about the hierarchy of reality as, for example, he would say Paramarthik Satta, Pratibhasika Satta, Vyavaharika Satta, and Pratibhasika Satta. What he means is, like, there is this relativity. So there is this mutual, these contradictions that confuse us is because we, so to speak, try to horizontalize everything. There is a hierarchy, vertical hierarchy, so to speak. The moment we move from one plane to other plane, all things get absorbed properly. So I think that this thing has to be kept in mind when Ibn Arabi tries to distinguish ethical religion, ontological, or divine wish or divine will. What he's basically saying is that divine wish would be that he would say, try to avoid a poisonous snake. That's his wish. That's what he means by apostle as a physician, that he would try to treat me, as in he would try to tell me, don't do bad things, do good things. So that's what divine wish is on ethical plane when there is dialectic. But divine will, as in his knowledge or his possibilities, they would manifest. So on that level, everything is sanctioned. So I think, this, in fact, if you go to Zen, that abundant use of paradoxes has a reason. The whole Zen teaching is actually, the edifice of Zen teachings are paradoxes. That's how they train their disciples, because it is, so to speak, a balancing of paradoxes, or sort of seeing paradoxical things, so to speak, balanced out properly. How do we now? This is what the job of the saint is, that he's able to see both ethical and as well as ontological, and he's able to. So he as a human being, whilst he's a human being on the dialectic plane, living on earth, he's a follower of prophet, he's follower of divine wish, he's follower of prescriptions, and he will follow Sharia. But deep down, he knows the ontology as well. That he's able to balance that, and that is what actually Ibn Arabi means by opening of the third eye. Or even, for example, Hindus would say that Shiva's third eye. This third eye is the balance between ethical and ontological. That whilst on the creative plane, I follow ethics and I follow Sharia, because I am a human being and I am living in the plane of dialectic. I am living in the plane of that. That's why Quran constantly says that in the alternation of day and night are signs for those who understand. So this is yin and yang. This is light and day. On this dialectic plane, I have to side with the good. But deep down, I also know that all this dialectic is part of a totality. It's a manifestation of one absolute. So this balance is to be made up.
Yes, I have no dispute about this. You yourself in your lecture mentioned that Allah don't punish for sin. We get punished by the sin. And you said that Bema Kasabat Aidihim. So this particular things happening in Europe, they themselves brought in upon them. Ma asabaka min hasanatin famin Allah. Whatever good is happening, that comes from Allah. But wama asabaka min sayyatin famin nafsik. Whatever
Yeah,
bad happening
exactly.
to you,
Exactly.
that
Well,
is created by yourself.
that's
So,
a beautiful point.
but that bad is also part of God's manifestation, and that bad is the Jalal. That's what the
That's a,
sun,
No.
the Jalal
No.
named
no,
part is
if,
the sun.
Hold on
So
a second.
that's a,
fire is part of Jalal. But if you use the fire, it will burn you.
the ayah that Noor you point out is so beautiful. In fact, it explains what we are trying to explain. When God says, it's a very beautiful ayah. When God says that from God comes good and evil comes from you, it explains what he's saying. What God is, or what Quran is basically saying, is that on the level of God or on the level of absolute, everything is good.
Yes.
There's no duality.
Yeah.
But when there is dialectic, when you human beings come into being, then you seek out whether it's restlessness or whether it's bliss. It's your seeking which God will give. Go like if you try to put it in other language, which would might make it more comprehensible, is that God is like pure wujud, right? He gives wujud. Now wujud is neither good or nor bad, but it's me who seeks out wujud. My wujud is either going to be restless or blissful, but pure wujud has nothing to do with it. It's me who seeks. My actions and my inclinations is so to speak demanding from God that I want wujud, I want bliss, or I want restlessness, or I want hell, or I want heaven. But on the level of, so when Quran uses that ayah, that actually explains what we were trying to discuss, that for good, for God or for absolute, everything is good, because it is a sanction of God, it's a possibility of God. So for God won't call snake bad, he won't call lion bad, and human, this an insect bad, or no, everything is a possibility, and that's good. That's what the ayah is saying.
Yeah, you can actually say that natural law or the rules are different at different levels. So we cannot apply the rules of the duality to the non-duality. So we cannot apply the rules for humans, the good and bad, to God. The arena of God is not good or bad. We define by definition, everything that God does is good by definition. Even if it's killing, whatever it is, we say anything that comes from God is good by definition. There's nothing as bad there. Otherwise, we are creating another God. Who is the one that's doing the bad things on that level of godhood? It has to be another God, which doesn't make sense.
Yes.
I am calling the Rai, I am calling all those names as Jalal, but you guys not agreeing. Is that correct?
No, I think it's a little bit.
One second. What we were saying, sir,
Yeah.
no, sir, is basically
Yeah.
that when we talk about absolute or Godhead, it even transcends this binary that we are creating between Jalali and Jamali. Jalali and Jamali don't go to the end of it. Godhead transcends this whole Jalali Jamali binary as well, because absolute when there is absolute, when there is Godhead, when there is no manifestation, when he, for example, if you take Ibn Arabi, when he says that the last station of the saint in his journey is that he confronts his own sabita, his own modality. He sees his archetype. He can't go beyond that, because Ibn Arabi says to go beyond that, as in to go to the level of absolute, because at the level of absolute there can't be two. So I can't be there. So that whole thing has to go. That's the end of it.
Mugees, we are not disputing about absolute. We are talking about Zatihi wa Asmaihi. We are not talking about his. We are not talking about his Zat.
No, that's
we are not
actually I was
touching there,
trying to
because
say
that
on
part we
ontology.
even don't exist. We are
I'm
talking
saying,
about Zalal and Jamal, which is his Sifat,
no,
right?
I'm not talking about Jalal and Jamal. I was talking about ethical and ontological. I'm talking
Yeah,
about
so ontological existence. This
by
Sifat has
ontology.
ontological existence.
By ontology I mean absolute. What I am trying to, sir, distinguish is between dialectic and absolute. That's what I'm trying to, not Jalal and Jamal. Jalal and Jamal are themselves part of dialectic.
Yeah, I'm just trying to say that this manifestation of Abil is part of one of his Sifat. Now I'm classifying this Sifat Jalal and Jamal. Yeah. which part, shaitan, which name is manifesting shaitan? Which
Well,
name
God-
of Allah is manifesting as a shaitanic activity? Which name of,
But
which
if
name?
the divine names have both Jalal and Jamal, therefore all the divine names are the names of God,
Exactly.
which means God wants to manifest what you call is bad sometimes, which means
Exactly.
we
No,
cannot
that
call
bad
it
is
bad.
also God's name.
Therefore, which we cannot call it bad, because we could never use the word bad.
Why can't we call it? God himself
because-
calling himself Ya Darra. He himself.
But-
Bad is God's
That's
name.
right. He said that right. He
But-
didn't say bad. Bad is different. It's a judgment from a human. Bad is a judgment.
Yes, that's the
I'm not
point,
judging.
that's the
I'm
point.
saying that bad is God himself, named himself. Ya Darra is
But-
his name is bad. How
Darra
can you say
mean-
Darra
no,
ya
but
Sharra
Darra
is
doesn't
not
mean
God's
bad. No, I don't think
that doesn't
Darra
mean
means
bad. That means one who harms.
name? Huh?
Yeah,
One
Yeah, who harms? Exactly. The
that's
one
not bad.
that
That
has-
might be the
no.
right thing to
So-
do to the right person
Yes,
at the
yes.
right time, which means it could be a good thing. It's not necessarily bad.
Exactly, but good and bad, as I'm saying, it's a relative matter.
Yes.
But doing harm and also makar, doing all those sort of intiqam, this revenge, everything is God's Jalal name. Those
Correct.
part of his Jalal name.
Correct. Yes.
So that's what I'm just trying to say. We are not talking about huwa ahadun bedatihi.
Yeah.
That is completely out of question. I'm just talking about huwa wahidun. He used unique in his asma'ihi wa sifatihi. In this sifat, God has this negative sifat and positive sifat. If you want to call it Jamal sifat,
Yeah, I
and
think
Jalal
Noor,
sifat.
I think it's much better if you call them just Jalal and Jamal.
Okay.
Don't use the word good or bad or negative and positive.
Okay, that's
because
fine then.
These,
Yeah,
these,
because
this is what's
previously you are
throwing
not
us out.
agreeing to
This
say
is
call
what's
him
throwing us
Jalal
out.
either.
Yeah, this is what throwing us into duality. See, Jalal and Jamal is not part of the duality as such. But
We are talking about the duality. We are talking about this dunya only.
Yeah,
we are not talking about we are not touching that part. We are talking about the dual world, because occasionally we are fall into it sometime.
Right, but God does not fall when he does the
no, God doesn't do anything. We are not talking about God here. We are talking about manifestation.
Yeah.
The shadow or this reflection, which has been told that basically is the tashbih part we are talking about, not the tanzih part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just talking about tasbih part. The tasbih, which is his likeness. Huwa la huwa. Not talk about the la huwa. Huwa. But huwa, which is of course huwa anta and la huwa. Of course, la huwa is not here question mark, because that is a tanzih, which is part of the ahad, which is part of the God himself manifest. Of course, huwa mustawla ala batini ala kulli zahirin. He is present in here in an unseen way. Everything in the world of seen is connected to the world of unseen.
Correct.
So the shaitan, what is here manifesting, who is actually giving this illusion, is because linabluwakum ayyukum ahsanu amala, so that I can test you which way your good quality is manifested. As a result, sometime I put you into test, and when I put into your test, then I have a different polarity, but it's both is me, because I am the one who is manifesting both scenario. But you, if you are aware of God, then you need to distinguish it. So that's why in Ruhul Quddus I was reading the other day, Ibn Arabi is talking to his soul, and the soul is saying the station of Khalaj is higher than the station of Wise Karni. And then the soul is saying the reason both of them were fasting one day, and there is another person came, a beggar. What happened is Al-Halaj gave his food away. He said he sacrificed his food. Whereas when it came to Vaiskarani, he took little bit of it and he ate it, and the rest he gave it away. So this particular comparison in the outer world, his ego is saying, no, this Halaj is higher because he sacrificed. So Ibn Arabi is arguing that no, a station of voice is higher because when this food was given, that food, he himself, he didn't want to do zulum on his body, because body doesn't belong to him, it belonged to God. So he didn't differentiate between his body and the other hungry body. He equalized it, and he did a justice. He applied these prophetic teachings that the charity begins from home. So he looked after his tummy first, because this is his home. That's why he gave it to him little bit, and he gave it rest away. And that's the identification, that you are not, this is where the Rijal of Deen and also higher station understand. And this is what Ibn Arabi's argument was. So anyway, I think I got my point done.
Okay.
I just wanted to understand whether I am understanding correctly or not. This is why I just wanted to discuss about it. Anyway, thanks, Mugees. Sorry, I spoke quite a lot. Apologies.
Anyone else maybe like to ask a question or make comments? Yeah, I will say that I think these kind of things, when we're talking about them, there is a big difference between talking about them from experience and talking about them from intellectual knowledge.
Oh my God.
And this is where we have to be careful, all of us, myself included. It is very easy for us to think this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad, this is higher, this is lower. But we're really looking at it from our perspective, which is not seeing the holistic view. And when the holistic view is present, the picture can look very different. And this is the meaning of Ibn Arabi's, to my understanding, of the unity of being, as opposed to, you know, it's a vertical right and wrong, not a horizontal left and right. You know, so we have to be very humble.
Yes, it's difficult in this situation because this chapter is specifically about religion.
Yes.
And religion means binding, and it means submission. Ibn Arabi says all this, and I think, Mugees, you brought it up. It also means obeying. So, you know, it's bound to make us really think about how we conduct our lives from moment to moment, experience or no experience, because the people who have no experience,
yes,
but they attach themselves to a religion, are still obeying without necessarily knowing why a set of rules and regulations that actually come from him. And they're still allowed to follow them, and they're still going to get their just rewards. They're going to be recompensed and stuff. And you know, in other words, that snake. I mean, I thought the Mugees' bringing up the poisonous snake was really good, because there's so many stories about snakes, and the snake in itself, there's nothing wrong with it, but one's attitude towards it is going to determine whether one lives or dies. You know, if there's a famous story in Balyani where the student has been listening to the sheikh. God is one, God is good, everything's fine. He goes up and he puts his hand on the snake and he gets bitten. And then the sheikh says to him afterwards, what on earth were you doing? And the man says to the sheikh, you said that God is one, you know, how can there be any problems? But he ended up getting bitten. So the sheikh warned him, said, learn by this, that it isn't as you think it is. You know, you have to use discernment. And that's, I liked what Mugees said about paradox as well, because you've got this idea of fear God, and he will endow you with discrimination. So I think that's a kind of a paradox, because fear is something we don't want to associate. We want to love God. God is looking after us. God is the shepherd. God is the one who takes care of us. But if that's taken to an extreme, then we become oblivious of the fact that we're in a world where things that can take us away from this life can happen. Now, whether that's good or bad, it's neither here nor there. Ultimately, it's good because they're going to be returned to him. But in the meantime, if it damages one or breaks one's arm, one isn't going to be happy about it. So I think discrimination is important. You mentioned that, Noor, in what you were saying. And also, it's very, being scared is a continuum. The more you know and the more you love, the less scared you're going to be. You're going to know that the snake has its place. God knows what that place is, and you're going to stay clear of it. Unless you're Haji Bairam, who's surrounded by lions and dangerous animals, because he's a saint. Somehow his relationship to the world is different. But I wouldn't say, speaking about Frank's level of experience, I'm not going to go and say, because I like Ibn Arabi and I love God and this, that, and the other, I can go and sit next to a lion. That's a different kettle of fish. And the other story that came up, Mugees, do you mind if I say this story?
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead. Please.
In the Mathnawi, there's a story about a big snake. It's so big, it's like a monster, and it's terrifying a whole village. And the man comes into the village and he says, I can fix it for you. I can kill this monster. The village will be fine. So he goes off into the hills, and yes, he kills the monster, and he puts it on a cart. He puts the monster on a cart. He brings it back to the village, and he says to all the villagers, look, I've killed this monster. You're all going to be okay now. I did it. It's all fantastic. The cart is standing in the middle of the village square. All the villagers have come out to watch and to say, oh my God, this is amazing. And lo and behold, this snake or monster wakes up, and it kills the man who killed it, and it kills all the villagers. What had they done wrong?
Yeah, I think when you say khaf, when you say fear God, the word fear is a translation from the Arabic khaf rabbak. Khaf rabbak is not really like the fear that is talking in the relative. I'm afraid of this and I'm afraid of that. It is implying, the word khaf rabbak implies respect for the almighty power. There's no power bigger than it, more powerful than it. So it is like, it's not to be scared of. It's just don't try to do anything against it, because you will lose, because it's the most powerful power.
Yes.
So it's fear from that point of view, not that God or he is scary for us. We have to be scared from him. I think love
Some people are, Frank. I mean, you have to allow that there are some people who are like that. You aren't, right? Because you've got some knowledge. So you've translated that word into another word which is more palatable. Have a respect for, taqwa. Yes, you're quite right. But on another level, it is very scary for some people.
That's fine. That's good. That's where people on that level.
You have to allow that.
That's
there are
acceptable.
people like that.
But we are talking about raising our levels. So
No.
We will say the deeper meaning. Yeah.
You can tell me that when you are actually faced with something really, really scary, you might go through a variety of emotions. On one level,
I will definitely be scared. I'm not saying I'm at that level.
That's all. If you are scared, whether you think of it as reverence or whether you think of it as mindfulness, be mindful.
It will show where I'm at.
No. On the contrary, he will still endow you with discrimination. So whether it's the Gnostic who loves, or whether it's the person who's terrified, he will still endow you with discrimination. So that's where the mercy comes in. It doesn't matter whether it's fear or whether it's reverence or whether you've elevated it to something other level. He will still endow you with discrimination. That's beautiful. That's Jamal, because it doesn't matter to him what level you're at. He will still endow you discrimination if you acknowledge him.
Correct.
I mean,
No doubt.
that's
well, that's beautiful. Yeah.
That's what this religion is one's attitude towards this reality, which is so much bigger. What is it? Do I not care at all? How do I behave? I think that's the ethical. Isn't that the ethical side of it, Mugees?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. Isn't another word for religion? Religion is the process of reaching God, for example. Isn't that what religions is? It's like a process. It's the knowledge of how to reach God. Yeah.
I don't think Mugees, does he define it like that in this chapter?
It's not what this chapter said. I misunderstood it to mean that. I might be wrong, but I understood in the first paragraph almost.
I think Ibn Arabi, by religion, he means it, so to speak, a custom.
Shall we say again?
So I'm saying that Ibn Arabi basically means by religion custom. What he means by custom is that my own state, my own inner state generates corresponding repercussions. So that's my own adab or custom, as in whether I am restless or I want to be restless or I do activities that create restlessness. That what he's saying, Ibn Arabi, is like it's my seeking and God gives. Like God is Rahman and He is Jud al Karam. He grants wujud. So if my inclination is towards bliss, that's what He's going to give me. If my inclination is towards bad, that's what He's going to give me. And that's what he means by ethical. That's the custom of God and custom of me. Yes. But I think
sorry, I was just looking at the last line of the first paragraph of Jacob. It says, he says, the religion with God is Islam, submission, which means following and obeying Him. Religion meaning you're yielding to and submitting to Him. That to me was the meaning of religion. It's a path to God.
Yes, I think on a more general level, what we would say is that the main purpose of religion would be, you would say, to save people. Because this is what actually Frank was saying. Because as Schwann used to say, that metaphysician Fridtjof Schwann used to say that we can't expect everybody to be Plato. Plato cannot save everyone. But religion saves everyone down to the last man. Because religion, so to speak, is what we would say that adaptation of pure metaphysical content, which is pure intelligence. It doesn't really care about sentimentality and all of that, but it adapts that metaphysical content to a certain mentality, and that's what we call religion. So the main purpose of religion is not to deliver, so to speak, metaphysical truth to a person, because not everyone might be able to follow it. But its purpose is to save them. Save them from what? Save them from the unnecessary wavering from what? For example, the Sharia basically in Islamic tradition means the shortest path to oasis in the desert. It's the shortest path because it asks you to avoid unnecessary wavering, following desires and whims. So that's what religion is. To say, I don't need to care about what is absolute and what is Maya and what is Atman. I just need to follow this. If I follow this, I would be saved. So that's the purpose of religion.
He also talks about this dispensation. He says that from which God is which comes from God is dispensation to which you submit yourself, which is religion. So the capacity for people to follow the religion is also dependent on what God has given the people as a dispensation to be able to follow God. So some people can follow God more deeply, and some cannot because they haven't got that dispensation to do so. So it is a combination of both
Absolutely.
the
In
God's
fact,
grace before we can start seeking him. And once we got the grace and we start seeking him, then it's dependent to some degree on us, on our ability or interest to obey that seeking process.
yes, in fact, if we would say in all great these wisdom traditions or age-old traditions, there has been always this registration of what we would call a personality typology, and that's from where actually the whole notion or doctrine of yogas in Indian tradition. For example, there is Jnana Yoga, there is Karma Yoga, there is Bhakti Yoga, there is this Raja Yoga. There are different yogs or paths which correspond with the particular personality type. For example, this is actually the whole this that differentiation we see, and I think it's in Rig Ved that Brahmins come from the head part of Brahma, has basically to do with personality type. That there are some people who, by their very natural inclination, psychological natural implication, are drawn towards philosophical truths or pure speculation or metaphysics and all of that. There are some people who, by their very nature, are into action. Some people, by their very, are into like business and all that. For example, there are some people who are so workaholic that if I, for example, I drag him into this discussion, someone, they won't be able to follow it. So there is this I think in Indian tradition, age-old Indian tradition, wisdom, that philosophical tradition, there is this registration that not all people are same, and that's where from actually diversity emerged from Indian tradition, because they were the, I think from beginning they understood this fact that people are different. People have typical personality types. I think Carl Jung, the modern psychologist, did a little bit work on this personality typology, from where the words became famous, like extroversion and introversion and all that. So it's actually an established psychological factuality, so to speak, that different people have different personality types, and that's what actually Sufis also recognize from quite early. They recognize this, for example, that they used to say that not everyone has to be Sufi or cannot be Sufi, and they never, so to speak, that true mainstream Sufis never superimposed these discussions on the common people, and they had the understanding of this.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Mugees, Noor has a question. She's got her hand up. Are you happy to take another question?
Yes, please.
Noor.
Thank you, Mugees, for the wonderful presentation. And you have mentioned personality type in yoga tradition. If you can, would you please just say something about the personality type vis-a-vis Ayane Sabita in Ibn Arabi, if possible? Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I won't be able to go into the details of it, but actually you are in a way correct, because in fact, I mean, I won't, so to speak, compare these two things, but it is sort of interesting to say that, for example, Jung, who I mentioned, who talks about personality typology, actually does talk about archetypes. And yeah, that has some sort of a inkling, we would say, with what we mean by Ayane Sabita. It's like modalities, the pure archetypes that seek wujud. And yes, I think there is, I mean, for example, parents very clearly know from very early childhood that there are proper typical personality, that this guy is more extroverted and this guy is more. Parents know this very well. And this is what actually I remember. This is Jung taking jibe at Locke, the British empiricist, who used to say that human beings are tabula rasa, pure blank slates. But Jung used to say that a child is not tabula rasa. A child is a living reality. When he's born, with him. He comes with a certain type, with a certain ion or a certain archetype. And that's very clear, the kind of things he's going to like, the kind of things he's going to be interested. Because at the end of the day, the very important point, which again Jung and other people like Campbell point out, is like, if we just talk about interest, when people say I'm interested in this or I'm interested in that, the point is that interest is never willed, or people fall in love, or so to speak. That, I mean, nobody chooses to fall in love. For example, if something doesn't work out and we ask the person, now, you got to move on. Nobody can will himself not to love someone he loves, or nobody wills his interest into being. I don't will that I have an interest in cricket or something else. So interest, so to speak, comes first. It's archetypal. It has an archetypal presence which captures me, and later on I pursue my interests. So definitely there are, I think in Ibn Arabi, there is this possibility of deeper discussion of archetypes and types. And that's why there have been, as I was just mentioning, the doctrine of yogas, because they had this understanding that, not everybody is going to follow metaphysical discussion. This is the point he said. For example, the reason there is bhakti yoga, for example, Indian tradition, is because there are some people who cannot really relate with absolute. They have to have personal God with whom they have bhakti, or that very deep personalistic devotion. Otherwise, they won't be able to follow. So there is this huge, rich, so to speak, bhakti tradition in India, where a large populace of people who won't be able to follow this jnana yoga, what we call the path of knowledge, or pure intellection, not rational stuff, pure what you call logic or intelligence or pure awareness. No, not everyone will be able to follow that. Therefore, there is these diversities of yogas. So that is actually the beauty of these all wisdom tradition. In fact, I think these are the things, if modern people understand these things, there is going to be, I think, greater tolerance, which we need.
Yeah.
In fact, what you said, Mukti, just corresponds to what Ibn Arabi says in his third paragraph, where he says it's the servant who establishes the practice of the religion, and God determines its nature.
Okay.
The religion is from the servant's act.
Yes. Right.
So are you suggesting, Bob, then that a person's inclinations might determine how they worship, whether it's a devotional worship, whether it's a kind of, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
I was wondering if he did touch on that in this chapter, and I think that's where he does touch on it.
Yes, he did. So anyone else has maybe one last question or comment you'd like to make before maybe it is nearly time to conclude soon?
We didn't hear from Noor as to whether she felt that the response was what she...
Thank you. No, it's good, but someday I hope we can get into the concept of Ayane Sabta at some point into more detail, because I'm really, really interested in that. And did we ask for it? And then if it is given, I mean, somehow just exploring it a bit more. But thank you, Mugees. It was really nice, and thank you.
Okay, so there's no more question. I'm sorry that I missed your presentation, Mugees, but I will definitely be listening to it, and I will email you.
Sure.
I hope that I will be able to email you some questions and comments, and you give me some special treatment on the side, because even though I don't deserve it because I didn't turn up.
No, definitely. Sure.
Thank you so much for that. So maybe now, as we always do at the end, we ask if somebody